Hey everyone, before we talk to Laura Murphy, our guest, we wanted to tell you real quick about an event that Pete Chapman, our buddy and fellow director and fellow podcaster, is having on March 19th at Dynasty Typewriter in LA. It sounds like it's really awesome. We have Pete here real quick to tell us about the event.
All right. We're having our first live podcast. We're venturing out from Riverside and video and YouTube and audio. And the proceeds go to the Altadena Community Preservation Fund. These are victims of the California wildfires. And we're going to have a screening of my episode of Yellow Jackets. It'll be the most recent episode, premiering next Friday and Sunday. People who watch it will know that they have a 2-platform premiere. And we will premiere episode 306 or screen it. And we will follow that with a conversation with the creators of the show, Ashley Lyle and Bart Nickerson, a executive producer and director, Jeffrey W. Bird, and then 2 stars of the show, Courtney Eaton, who plays young Lottie, and Warren Cole, who plays Jeff Sadecki. Yeah, we're really excited. We're going to be at Dynasty Typewriter. It'll be a really cool craft-centered conversation about what people have watched. And I'm very, 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 very proud of the episode. For those that can't make it in LA or who can't get out the house in LA, there will also be a live stream available. And that will include the conversation, but unfortunately not the screening. So you can watch it on your own before you tune in.
Cool. Is there a website people can go to find out about this?
Yes, it's on the Dynasty Typewriter website.
So there's going to be a link in our description of this episode, but you can also go to @Pete Chatman, PETECHATMON on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of the show, like, man, this was like a script that I kind of like my eyebrows raised, and I was like, oh, wow, when I got it. It's got series revelations for people who've been watching since the beginning, and it's got season revelations if you're just catching up. So, watch it all if you can, but if not, you'll still have a good viewing experience.
That's awesome. And when you say it's a craft-oriented thing, you're going to talk about the directing and just kind of how you put together an episode.
The casting, the writing, like all those things. Like, I think it's really rare to be able to watch something and then talk with the people who created it from behind the camera, in front of the camera, and the journey of getting it from script to screen, like in a real, like, complex, nuanced way. Tickets are $20 for the live event, $15 for the live stream. And the proceeds go to the Altadena Community Preservation Fund. These are victims of the California wildfires. So it's all for a good cause.
So there's going to be a link in our description of this episode, but you can also go to @Pete Chatman, PETECHATMON on Instagram. And looks like you've got a link to get tickets there.
Hey, welcome to the 466th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patron Daniel Stebbins. I'm Matt Oren.
And I'm Oren Kaplan, and this is part 2 of our conversation with Laura Murphy, whose feature film, F, Marry, Kill, is out right now. I think it's in theaters, hopefully still, depending on when you're listening to this, and it's 100% on VOD and streaming. And this is going to be the second half of our conversation with her. It was really fun. If you haven't listened to the first part, what do you think? How necessary is it to listen to part 1?
I'm going to say fully necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you want to get an insight on who Laura is and why she made this movie and how it came to her, she's directed a ton of TV, a ton of commercials. This is her second feature, so you'll get all that. But I think this is where we get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, this feels like a why bother. If you're down for this episode, you should be down for the first episode. Right?
You think so? Don't you think most of our interviews get good in the second half?
Yeah, but we cut the first half. And there's a reason we didn't cut the first half on this one. Laura was a delight.
I guess it's pretty good out of the gate. So shame on you, Laura, for making this a 2-part episode.
This is a very long episode. Well, it gives us a second chance to promote F, Marry, Kill, her new feature film, which is available on streaming platforms now and also in theaters. Look at that. So wherever you are, you can go ahead and watch the movie.
Yes, and it's a game about marrying, killing, and I forget what the F stands for, but it's a very funny movie about a game, and it has a crazy twist at the end. And that's it about that movie. Do you want to talk about Magic Mind before we do the catch-up?
Let's talk about Magic Mind real quick. Yeah, I'm waiting for my new shipment, and I miss it.
You shipped your Magic Mind.
I drank it all, so I've been jonesing for a little bit of Magic Mind. What about you?
Yeah, I still am hoarding it, and then using it in very precise ways. Did we talk about the ceremonial grade matcha and how I looked up what that means? Yeah.
And it's literally what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also got
when you sacrifice people, you got to use the ceremonial grade.
There's all sorts of ceremonies out there, not just sacrificial.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What other ceremonies?
Yeah.
The Oscars?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
It's the magic mind of award shows.
We got dressed up.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
At your house, just you and your wife.
And my daughter, most importantly.
Did you wear a tux?
No, really my daughter and my wife got dressed up. I shouldn't take credit, but my daughter did put jewels on my face.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah. We ordered pizza. It was great. It was wonderful.
Cool. Yeah. I watched it for free with my antenna.
So you got the whole thing. I have Hulu and it cut out at the end, but it didn't cut out for us actually.
Well, so we have Hulu. It wasn't, my wife couldn't get it to start. So full disclosure, I went to Knott's Berry Farm yesterday and I missed the beginning of the Oscars, but my mom was like, oh, it's going to air again after, like when it ends, they re-air it again.
Oh, gotcha.
So it ended and then I was like, great, I'm so excited to watch the Oscars and I have to watch them yesterday because then I can't go on any social media because I'll know who won. Yeah. And then it just American Idol started. I was like, what is going on? I was like so mad at my mom. I'm like, Mom, you told me it's okay to go to Knott's Berry Farm because I can watch this later. Anyhow, ended up, you couldn't stream it right after the Oscars. You had to wait till the next day to stream it. So I could only see it live. It turned out they did air it again, kind of live or whatever, the second
live
time.
Tape or whatever.
And I had my antenna, Channel 7, ABC in LA.
So if you'd had Magic Mind, you probably would have been on point and knowing like, oh, I'm going to use my creativity and my focus to figure out the best way to watch the Oscars or any other tasks that you have. So if you go to magicmind.com/shoot it, you can save 45% off your first order.
Can I tell you why I'm so happy I didn't do Magic Mind yesterday? Have you been to Knott's Berry Farm?
I have, yeah.
They have some insane rides there that really twist your stomach upside down.
Yeah.
And I would have lost that precious Ashwagandhian lion's mane filled Magic Mind. Yeah. Do you know they have a ride called Hang Time where it's called that because you're just like, feel like there's no gravity. You're just hanging in the air upside down. Anyhow, it was crazy.
I don't care for any of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I got quite sick on quite a few rides because now that I have a 9-year-old daughter and her friend.
Need for speed.
She's, 52 inches. That's all you need.
Yeah. Crazy.
And you can go crazy. Anyhow, magicmind.com/shoot it. And before we talk to Laura, I've been dying to know, Matt, just a quick tidbit on what you've been working on lately.
Yeah, so I'm on a job right now. It's exciting and fun, a little bit of travel, working with some celebrities. And I wanted to talk about it actually because it's interesting. It was one of those jobs where it got awarded and like I was taking a look at the creative. I didn't pitch on it. I was booked just purely off the reel.
Can you just tell me, what does that mean? It got awarded?
Like they selected me for the job. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I just don't know people outside of the commercial know like that term.
Context clues probably would have connected the dots for people. But yeah, I was
we are just talking about the Oscars.
So rather than treating like normal, I sent them my reel and they were like, great, you can do it. This is perfect. Right. And so the reason it's important is that it meant that I hadn't really like walked through my take. I think you and I have both expressed a little consternation when you don't have to pitch on it because you're not sure that people really are aligned with what you want to do, or maybe you haven't even figured out what you want to do in the first place. Like the pitch process does force you to solidify your ideas and your take and get sign off on them. And when you take that part out of the equation, it can be a little disorienting, You
also when you're not pitching against other people, you're not driven as mad and insane about trying to find the exact right angle and like plussing things and adding details.
Yeah, and that killer instinct maybe. Well, Oren, I think you derive a lot of that from competition. I think competition does drive you. And it drives me as well, but it's more about, I think it comes from maybe a slightly different place. I don't know.
Like you're more about what's right for the job and I'm more about how to press the marry, kill out of those people.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But I guess it brings me to my point where, the creative wasn't fully formed when I got it. So I already had the job. It was mine. And I think it would have been easy to just be like, okay, well, we're just going to shoot some stuff for social and it is what it is. And That's fine. And I feel like I'm at a place in my journey where I'm really consciously trying to do great work again. Like, I feel like when we first started out, every job was a huge opportunity and a huge win. And it was such a delight just to like make things as cool as you possibly could make them and work at the height of your powers. And then, as our friend Jordan Brady likes to put it, at a certain point, some things are for the meals and some things are reels, or some things are for the deals, which is a way of saying some things are creatively satisfying and some things you're just doing for money. And
I think reels and meals.
That's what
I don't think there's a deals.
Okay, yeah. Reels and meals. Yeah. Some things are for the reels and some things are for the meals. So the insinuation is that the things that are for the meals, you want to do a good job, but you're not putting your heart and soul into it in quite the same way.
You're going to put food on the table.
You're trying to put food on the table, and so you're doing it for the money, and that's fine. And I think that I've just been reminded that directing is a privilege and that I like putting my heart and soul into everything. And that means that it's going to be heartbroken every once in a while, but that I'd rather do that than take it for granted, which I feel like I've done in the past for sure. I haven't put my all into every single job, for better or worse,
The other interesting thing, Jordan talks about directing commercials as if you're a doula, you're helping birth the agency's idea. And I think the interesting thing about that is sometimes you come and you're like, hey, here's like 10 very cool ways we can do your thing. And a lot of times the agency is like, what, just do it the way we want to do it. And you're like, okay. And so it's like you start out, to me, I'm always starting out with like, it's for the real mentality, but sometimes I get broken down.
You just can't.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. It's just for the meal.
Yeah. And so long story long, after a handful of creative meetings, I spent all weekend really crafting these ideas a little bit more and working with the team and really kind of trying to flesh them out to the point where like, I think that they're much clearer and I'm really excited about them. But with the knowledge that, some of them are just fully going to get cut. Like, we're not going to be able to shoot all of these and getting carried away with it. But it was just a nice reminder. Like, I just like looking back at what, if I hadn't stepped in to like help, with the team, I don't know where we would be now. But I do know that now I'm much more excited about the creative thanks to my effort and involvement. Do you know what I mean?
So just to clarify, you were given when you say the creative, you're basically mean the scripts, right? For what you're going to shoot.
But, they were even like a little bit more amorphous than that.
Right. And commercials, a lot of times, it's like, hey, we're going to talk to so-and-so about this topic. And that's the script. Or they'll be like, here's a meme from TikTok. Let's do something similar, but about this sport.
That's a great example. Yeah. There was definitely a lot of like, hey, these are cool memes, right? Yeah.
And so you were kind of, as the director, it's your job to take the script, in quotes, and turn it into a shot list, right?
Right.
And then when the camera's rolling, you need to be able to direct the people on screen to do something that will be fun or entertaining or funny or emotional or whatever tone you're looking for, so that you can edit those shots into a final product. And so in this, usually we're given a script, Matt says this, and then Oren responds with this, and then we cut to a wide shot and reveal that they're standing inside a whale.
Well, and the thing that's interesting about commercials is that while it's most of that work is not your responsibility, it is your problem. Right. You know what I mean? So like, you can't be like, well, I told you that this wasn't going to work, and now here we are on set and nothing's working.
Right.
That's a good way to never get hired on anything ever again.
Right.
Right. So how do you collaborate with people? How do you bring them in? How do you plus those ideas? How do you have meaningful conversations that help take things from, this is a cool TikTok idea, into like, no, this is literally how we're going to make this idea our own and specific to the brand and work with the talent and be funny and find all of the nuance and color to it.
Yeah. And why it's not going to be a ripoff of something that already exists.
I'm not even worried about that, frankly. Like, TikTok culture is like that. Like, if you literally just redid somebody else's
bucket challenge.
Yeah, ice bucket challenge. And like, people are like, oh, that's really cold. But the difference is that it's Neil Patrick Harris now instead of Whoopi Goldberg. That's fine. For sure. Yeah. But ice bucket challenge is perfect because it's physical. It's got props. You can be in the moment. But a lot of other memes that are far less successful, it's because they rely on
the performer.
Exactly. Exactly. So how do you set people up to succeed, especially when they're maybe not?
Right. And I sometimes refer to these scriptments or scripts or whatever, the creative materials that are given to us by the agency as half-baked, because it's like, there's kind of an idea here, but it's not solid enough for me to easily be like, okay, start on a close-up here, let's do a wide shot here, let's do this little interview, So it's sometimes it's our job to figure that out, and we want it to be really good. And you called me, I think it was over the weekend, and you kind of mentioned to me some of the ideas, and we riffed on them a little bit, and then you went back and did a lot of writing. But I know I talk about this on the podcast all the time, but I can't stress enough how valuable I think it is to just call someone.
Yeah.
And then it's nice when it's a director. Even before we started recording today, I was just flipping through my treatment. I was showing you, I wanted to show you some things, but you were like, oh, on this page, maybe this is distracting. Like that stuff, like just talking to people about what you're doing, even if it's your mom or your friend that doesn't work in film, is like so helpful. Even if I would have given you zero ideas on that call, you just talking it out loud to me.
I'm forced to articulate what I'm aiming for. Yeah. And
I'm asking you questions that I've given you
you'll be like, you'll be like, oh, is this a thing? And I'll be like, oh, what if you did it this way? And then you're like, oh, I see why you said that. That is funny. I like the way that I pitched it instead. Like you're reaffirmed. Like, oh, this is what I liked about this, and I'm figuring that out. And in exploring other ideas that may or may not be valid, you just, you recommit.
Yeah. I do have a little move. I mean, this is giving away some trade secrets, but I do have a move when I'm pitching competitively, when I'm trying to get the job against other people, where I will sometimes list the ideas I went through to get to the idea that I ended up on, because in a perfect world, someone else is pitching one of those other ideas.
Yeah, first thoughts. Yeah.
And I'm explaining to them why
you're evolved.
Yeah. So yeah, it is really good to just talk about it, especially with directors. And that's why I think, having a podcast, meeting other directors is like so helpful. But that's how all of my best work comes from me just talking to so many people about it before I shoot it.
Yeah. And the other thing, and this is kind of a symptom more of my life now, like I have, especially on the weekends when we don't have childcare, I have the morning before my baby wakes up, I have nap time, and then I have after hours. And so I was forced to work in those stints, basically. And I was trying to get it out to people in time for them to have notes and adjust things or plus things as well. So I was really trying to aim for a Sunday afternoon before the Oscars sort of deadline. But that forced me to revisit it regularly, which is so much better than just writing it in one fell swoop. Like being able to come at something with fresh eyes and say oh, I can tweak this, or I can cut this, or oh, this isn't as strong as I thought it would be, I think is really helpful. The final thing I want to say about this all is that there is a level of vulnerability to pitching ideas in general. And, this is a company that I haven't worked with a ton of times before. I'm still getting to know personalities. I'm the sort of person that is willing to flop hard in a room because I believe that just keeping the conversation moving and pitching something is going to spark something in someone else. And I'm all about the room coming to the best idea, not me taking credit for the best idea. Do you know what I mean? And that's my own vibe, and probably means that I wouldn't be a success at SNL or places that are a little bit more
cutthroat.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying is kind of a different version of the idea of the vomit draft, right? It's like, hey, if I don't have a good idea, let's give a bad idea, and then we'll build from there.
Or it's a half an idea, but you're going to figure it out with me,
Right.
Let me just say it out loud. But it does create this thing where it's you don't want to caveat everything with hey, I know this is half baked, but, or this is a little sketchy, but, or, whatever the caveat is. But you also don't want them to think this is my best material.
Right.
I think because I'm an independent study person, I would much rather have a conversation, go away, write for 30 minutes, and then come back with material than pitch in the room nonstop. I need that time to just kind of meditate and tinker and wordsmith a little bit. And so the antidote to that when you're in a working environment is to be willing to pitch things that have something there. I'm not wasting people's time. There's always a kernel, but I know that it is not a pearl yet. It's still just a grain of sand. I think that metaphor works if I know enough about pearls.
You don't.
Yeah.
But I do think that it works. But you should you should learn way more about
need
pearls.
To read up on. Are you the one sending me all those pearl encyclopedias?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I sent you that short about pearls with Will Ferrell. So yeah, I agree with all that. And I think that because it's a collaborative medium too, sometimes it's okay to be like, hey, here's the idea, here's how to shoot it. But just throwing this out there if it sparks any interest in anyone or anything in anyone's brain. Like, is it funny if our main character is wearing a cast? You know, like there's some. Sometimes I just
That's
like ask. Funny. You know, like, is there something funny about this thing? And if no one responds, then I just move on.
But no, not to dig in too deep on this. But like, is it funny? Is a phrase I use all the time, and there are plenty of people, collaborative people, who understand that it's shorthand for let me test this out and let's figure it out together. But not everyone sees it that way. So I think people maybe who are a little less experienced or a little more arrogant or whatever, who would be like, Oren should know if it's funny or not. Stop asking, only say funny things.
Right. Yeah. Most of those people are not funny.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. But do you know what I mean? Like, that's not to say that we aren't around those people sometimes. They tend to be weeded out, and, you know, anyone who thinks that they're literally the funniest person in the room, unless they're Maya Rudolph, they're wrong, you know, like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird life. Yeah. Anyway,
but it is a muscle.
The funniest person in the room, Laura Murphy. Pretty funny.
Yes, she is. And you know what's even funnier? Our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/justshootitpod, you can throw us $1, $2, $4, $8, $10 a month. And it really, really helps keep this podcast going. And it's really mostly driven out of the goodness of your heart and the selfishness of your career. So yeah.
Wow. Without any further delay, my wife just texted me, are you doing a full episode? So
what? An intro is a full episode. What, you got to watch White Lotus? I get it. Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, here's Laura Murphy. You mentioned you have a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So by pre-COVID birth?
Right during it. Like, yes, by like, it was February 2020. So like, it was like 3 weeks later and this country was shutting down.
Yeah.
We got the last sanitizer.
Remember they made you wear like the
visor,
the visor, and then
the mask.
I would
That's
wear
probably one of my
too.
coolest looks I've ever had.
I just was like, there were multiple takes where I was just like, you guys, we have to go again because I fogged up my visor. I can't see it.
As soon as they were like, oh, you could have side pieces on your own glasses. I was like, oh, I'm going to wear I'm starting wearing glasses right now.
Yeah,
Matt,
I was like, I can't wear the visor.
Some of the best stuff that Matt has ever directed was while his visor was his visual taste is so poor.
It got better. Yeah. I should just
it's like what's the Woody Allen movie that I always reference? Hollywood Ending. Do you know that movie?
Is it Hollywood Ending or is it?
No, I don't know that one.
Yeah,
it's that the one where the guys.
He's like a has-been director that no one has hired for many years, and he finally gets a job and he gets so excited about it that the night before the first day of shooting, he develops a case of psychosomatic blindness. And so he's trying to direct this movie. He's blind. He has a DP from like Hong Kong or something that doesn't speak English. And he has the only person that knows he's blind is his like assistant. And he'll be like, okay, ready and action. And the assistant will turn him around because he's like facing the wrong direction, you know? Okay, and action. And you know, it turns out to be like his best movie ever.
Is that is Larry David, Woody Allen in that one? Is that the one?
No, that's still in the Woody Allen playing Woody Allen days.
Oh, gotcha.
Kind of from a while
it's
ago.
like 2002, I'd get. Doesn't matter. Anyway.
So you made both your features while having a very young kid.
Yes, as a mom. Yeah.
Did you bring your kid to set, or how do you manage that? Matt and I also have I have a 3-year-old, and Matt has a 3-year-old. I guess.
So you know the challenges. My husband also is a camera operator and worked unoperated on both the movies, so that was an added challenge.
Both movies.
Yeah.
Hardcore. Okay.
Yeah, and they were both night shoots, a lot of night shoots, so that was brutal. Right. So we, Curse Friends shot in LA, which was awesome. That never happens, and so that was very convenient. It was great. We had a babysitter. We had in-laws come and visit. We had a team of people. When we shot F, Marry, Kill, he was a little older. It was a little easier, but we had to go to British Columbia. But
That's
also
in Britain?
it was in Kelowna.
Kelowna.
British
Okay.
Columbia. Did you say Great Britain?
I
Yeah.
just said Britain. I don't think it's that great.
What I love about that exchange is that
I was like, I didn't hear it, so I'm just going to clarify what it was. I assumed you said Vancouver.
I honestly don't know what Kelowna is. Is that a...
Kelowna is like city in British Columbia. Like I think it's like 4 hours from
okay.
Vancouver, but it is the like wine country of British Columbia,
that's
and
fun.
it is beautiful.
that's great.
Oh, cool.
It was beautiful, and they
Okay.
have this kind of
Yeah.
small film community. It was great, but I had to we brought our babysitter with us. We hired a local babysitter. My mom came. Hunter's parents came. Like it was literally in the credits of F. Mary Kill, and it's like director special thanks. It's all just people who took care of my child,
Yeah.
so I could do my job.
Yeah.
So that was challenging.
Yeah, and it must be stressful, like when you wrap and you go to your hotel or wherever your Airbnb, wherever you're staying, and you're probably the in-laws and the nannies. Everyone's like, "Oh, Laura's home; she can hang out with her kid," and you're like, "No, I have to make a shot list for tomorrow. We just
Can
lost
you
our
walk us through it
location."
a little bit? Honestly, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it could very easily be the whole episode for me.
Yeah.
Like this is all I want to talk about. This is like my dream is to like take my kid with me somewhere incredible, shoot a feature. My wife comes along. My wife's an actor. She can be in it. Like it's like the dream of a circus family.
Yeah,
Like that's the fantasy. Tell
it
me
is.
it's true, Laura.
It is true. A lot of things have to fall into place, and it adds a lot more stress during prep, trying to also prep that part of it. But then it can work. What worked in our favor is we were shooting overnights. So we could like shoot all night and then like come home and sleep. During the morning, we would sleep. That's when we needed the most help. But then I could like hang out with him a little bit in the afternoon. And then I also, like, as long as I have enough time, I am prepped by the time I start shooting, with the exception usually of the last week. I usually haven't gotten to the last week, but we shot for 20 days and I had like, 3 weeks or prepped already.
Yeah,
so
you're rolling, you're learning things.
yeah,
you're
and then like
fine-tuning
just the
it.
night before, just like re-going over shot maps and stuff. So we got to hang out. If it was day shoots, it would have been a lot harder because then they'd be with them all day and I wouldn't get to see them really, and that would have been more challenging. But so far, I've done 2 movies that were predominantly night shoots, and it's worked in my favor. But now, like,
that's awesome.
Now he's starting kindergarten next year, and we can't just take him out of school for 3. So every phase of my career and of him and his age is different, and it's new challenges every time. And I honestly never know going into them what I'm going to do. I'm just like, I guess it's worked so far. We'll figure it out, which is very challenging and stressful.
Well, I guess on a kind of related note, I'm curious, like the difference between shooting a feature in LA versus a feature in Kelowna, one of my favorite cities in British Columbia. Did you find, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, especially since the fires and things, about just trying to have production in LA, and we have the best crews and the best cast. Yeah. Obviously with the feature, the economies of scale, you can travel people for a month. It's a little cheaper than traveling people for one day for a commercial or something. But was there a huge advantage in shooting in Canada versus in LA?
I mean, I think financially there was a huge advantage for production.
In what way? Just like locations,
like there's a
food,
big incentive. The American dollar is so strong there at that time. They also had like a tax incentive there.
So it makes like a $5 million movie, like a $6 million movie.
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly.
That level of incentive.
And they have
$1 million extra dollars.
Their crews, they have. It's like Kelowna has a lot, like a couple, maybe 1 or 2 crews that work on a lot of projects there, and so they work at a lower rate because they're doing a lot of projects. So I think they save money that way. Also, their union situation is different. So there's like also, it was SAG and DGA obviously, and I think it became Canadian Union at some point. But it's like they're saving money on that now.
There's no healthcare.
Yeah,
to pay for.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no fringes, right? That's 26%.
Exactly, or whatever you have to pay.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of advantages for the production. And the crew there was so fantastic. Like I brought Jonathan, obviously I brought the DP and
the camera operator.
And the camera operator by coincidence. He didn't go there with that happening, but then like they were shooting another movie in Kelowna at the same time, and they only have a couple people there so I was like, well, I do have this camera operator who lives with me. So who I met through the DP, Jonathan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I actually worked with Jonathan, and Jonathan, as camera operator, ended up becoming my husband. So they knew each other. So it worked out great. But the crew is fantastic. But there's, it's so hard just picking up and moving to another country for 3 months, and it would be so much easier in LA. They didn't have a sound stage. We kind of used a warehouse and built the stage. And like everybody rose to the occasion. I think they do a lot of Hallmark movies there. So I think the crew was super psyched to work on something that they actually were like into and interested in. And Olga Device, who is the production designer, was just phenomenal. Just really
I did notice a lot of like gazebos in the movie.
Gazebos?
That's a Hallmark. That's a Hallmark joke.
These jokes are a hallmark of Men in Love.
I've watched a lot of Hallmark movies, weirdly, but they're all Christmas ones, so maybe there are gazebos.
Yeah, there's like a snowy gazebo in the background.
There's always a vintage truck. There's a lot of vintage trucks.
That's true.
Hallmark is mainly a vessel to push gazebo sales.
So, they didn't have a process trailer. There were just limitations. We have to get a lot of equipment from Vancouver. I think it was great. It was a great, great experience. Everybody there was great to work with. They made it work in a really fantastic way. At no point were we lacking what we needed, but I would have
ask you about casting. Like, how hard was it?
Wait, hold on. Let her finish the butt. I want to hear the
sorry.
first.
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry.
But had we been in Los Angeles, we would have had choices. Then also I would have been home and able to spend more time with my kid, and he wouldn't have had to stop school or, preschool and crews here that, we were heading into a strike then, but we had come out of a pandemic, and it's like, there's so many crews here just
you
not
could have
working.
taken your pick. Yeah.
Who can't even move their parents. It's so
But even from like a selfish point of view, as like a filmmaker like you, who's been doing it for like 20 years or however long it's been,
so
maybe more.
Let's say
since you were very young, since you were 6 years old, like you can be like, oh, this place isn't available, but I shot at this beach. I shot at Rat Beach. Like, have you tried that? Like, I work with this first AD that's been ADing for at least 150 years, and every time I'm like, yeah, we can't find a hotel. He's like, well, have you called so and so and so and so, and we just shot this. And when you're in another country, when they tell you the location scouts, like, yeah, there's only 3 restaurants here. You're like, yeah, okay, I feel like I saw some other restaurants, but maybe those are like, brothels. I have no idea how this country works,
Yeah.
So when we were in LA, you can be a great resource for yourself.
Yeah.
That happened with Curse Friends because we were like, it was like scary. We needed houses, and we also needed this other. And I was like, there's that place that I think RSI owns now that like used to be a hospital, and it's terrifying. It's definitely haunted.
Fully haunted. Fully haunted. Yeah.
But I was like,
I got put there twice.
Yeah, they're super cheap and it's scary, and that's what we need. So it's like, I remembered shooting stuff there, and like I shot a cheap commercial there once, and I was like, so yes, it's great to have that kind of like not encyclopedia knowledge of just LA locations. And I can call in more ringers for casting. Like I just know, Gabrus, I managed to get Gabrus in it, but only because he was mostly a voiceover until the end.
Was your producer like, hey, we can fly 5 cast up? Like, is that how?
There's basically, I think some of it is the incentive determines it. Like you have to, a certain percentage of roles have to at least try to hire a Canadian person first.
Right.
And then,
so that's why David Duchovny and Alanis Morissette and Ryan Reynolds have those 3 small, 3 wise.
Foley, Green.
Just all the big, Tom Green, all the big Canadian names. Bieber. Yeah, I think it's
all Bieber music. I thought it was a weird choice, but now I understand.
So that is kind of determined by, and it's just also the budget. Like you can't travel and put up, like, people that are doing like 1 or 2 days, you would like, that would be a perfect thing to call in like people that I know, and they're just not going to fly them
and be like, hey, are
up.
you free? I've got this cool role for a movie.
And they're not going to want to fly to Cologne,
Hey, Stephanie Sue will be in this. Yeah. That's cool. Do you also do commercials? I mean, obviously,
I do.
You have a ton of awesome commercials. You've done Geico spots, the holy grail of commercials. You've worked with Avril Lavigne, the coiner of the term skater boy, which is
also the original Canadian. That's my Canadian experience.
There you go.
Yeah. She loves maple syrup. Is that kind of can you just tell us about the balance of like your narrative? I mean, and you've done TV and you've done your buddies with Aquafina. I mean,
it's like my dream is to like be able to like do a movie and then finish the movie and be exhausted for the movie and then be like, I just want to do like real fun commercials for a while, wait for a good movie to come along. I think when I finally started getting traction in commercials, which took a very, very, very long time, didn't for a long time. And then I love the production company I'm with, and and that's been great.
You're
And I've
Gravy, right?
Gravy, yeah. and I've been getting
Dana Bash, that woman name.
Yeah. I thought it was the same Dana. I'm like, I know that Dana. Yeah. And the EP of Gravy and I kind of came up together at MTV. So it's like we've known each other for years. And so I started to like really put a lot of energy into commercials like 2 years ago, started getting some work and building a reel. And it's like, they're so fun. And they also allow me to be more selective about longer form projects, because I'm not like panicked about money. And it's like, I just want to enjoy doing commercials and do these fun things and make money, and it's great.
Cast your friends and like hook
great
people up
catering.
and,
Like Nobu with the client.
So like, and that's been fantastic. And then it's hard because I do feel like when I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to be unavailable for 9 months, it's not ideal for the commercial world, but there's ebbs and flows in that too. So like, ideally, if the timing works out where it's like, well, it's kind of always quiet this time of year anyway. And
it is ideal for an Oren and a Matt when Laura is like gone for 9 months.
I really hope your feature career just like skyrockets, Laura.
I mean, I've talked to so many companies who are like, we have these 4 great directors. They're all making their fucking movies.
Wait, have we really been up for that many jobs against each other?
Oh, it sounds like just one each.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I know Gravy pretty well. And
I bet that we have.
I feel like you're from commercials than I am.
Oren certainly. I feel like I kind of bounce back and forth between like narrative and commercials a little bit more, whereas Oren is all in on commercials at this point, and has been on a hot streak for about 2 years.
It's another way of saying I've given up on features and TV, which I would love to do. I mean, features. It's funny. I just texted Matt a text, which he of course didn't respond to, about Sean Baker's speech at the Indie Spirit Awards and how he's like, hey, I'm Sean Baker, Brady Corbett, like none of these people that are making the features that are winning best feature at the Oscars and at the award ceremonies.
Oren is blowing our catch up at the beginning of this episode, but that's
you wanted to, sorry.
But that's okay, because actually I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, Laura, you're actually perfect to talk to about this.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a family, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Sean Baker was like, you can't have kids. And
that's what Sean Baker said.
Filmmaker.
However, I am talking to a feature film director who's on the Laura right now. Yeah. Promoted her second feature, right? And like, it sounds like you have a pretty nice life, and it's not impossible.
You're buying houses all over the place.
Yeah, you live out at the beach, and you bounce back and forth.
Army of nannies.
That the commercials have helped that for sure. That's why. And also, I haven't worked in 5 months. If we're being real, I was 0 for 5 on the last 5 commercial pitches I did, and so it is kind of funny because I made F, Marry, Kill a while ago. It's just coming out now. And so there's, a lot of excitement around it and doing interviews and talking to people. But the reality is like, I haven't made money in 5 months, and I did recently buy a house. So I'm in full anxiety panic mode.
For what it's worth, just for a little commiseration, we hear this story a lot where people have just bought a house and then they're like, what happened to the jobs? But I think there is like a perspective shift. And you're also like spending so much of your creative energy on the house.
True. That's true. Yeah.
I can show you some Nook drawings if you want. I'm like, or a pantry. I've been dreaming.
But you also have a TV career, right? I mean, that must be, don't you get paid every time these things air?
I've only really done basic cable, and I've kind of stopped there. And I haven't been able to crack the network or premium cable television world. And I would love to. Like, that is definitely a goal of mine. I would love to be able to do that. So it's like, when I was doing Nora from Queens, it was good. I was working and making the money then, but there's residuals, but it's basic cable. So there's not as much and as many. And
Comedy Central is.
Yeah. It is absolutely mind blowing, the difference in how much money you get paid in residuals for a basic cable versus a primetime TV show. Yeah. Even though it's more or less the same amount of work. I mean, maybe primetime, I guess it's like an hour, and maybe you're doing half hours, but it's like, every time your primetime thing airs during primetime, you're making like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I feel like even Netflix, when I did a couple shows for Netflix. I did the Murderville, Who Killed Santa, but I also did the Eliza Schlesinger sketch show was also Netflix.
Oh, cool.
The residuals from Netflix were even better than basic cable. I was like, this is
really luxurious. They sent me like 10 free DVDs at one time.
It's like a lot.
That's your
Red
residual.
Envelope Central.
Well,
Yeah.
so I think this really punctuates the point that I was going to make about the Sean Baker of it all, because Oren, you weren't the only person who texted me that video. And for listeners, basically, we're recording this. Sean Baker had just won the Independent Spirit Award, and he had this great speech about
like 2 days ago or something.
2 days ago about how independent filmmakers don't get paid up front, and we don't have any back end. Like no one gets to make any money, and there are too many people who have award-winning films who aren't making any money, right?
Yeah,
like just like
the top,
it's
indie
impossible
filmmakers
to survive is his point, right? And that is all totally valid, and I agree. And I would love for everybody to be able to just do indie films, but it's kind of predicated on this expectation that I frankly never had, that I would only get to make independent films. And I'm talking to Laura, you're the perfect example of a person who's like, yeah, I do some TV and I do some movies and I do some commercials and I kind of bounce back between, and whatever's the most lucrative kind of keeps me afloat. And, we're all still stressed out, but you can have a good life. Right. Yeah. And that's the, I guess I'm just surprised that by the take that like, that wasn't going to be the plan for everyone. Do you know what I mean?
Right. But I think to me, why it's shocking, because Brady Corbett said when he was on Mark Maron, he also said, oh, I just got back from doing a commercial in Prague because I have to we don't get paid to promote the movie, you know? And that's all I've been doing for like the last year. So I have to do this commercial. But I think what's interesting about Sean Baker's, he's arguably like the number one most successful indie filmmaker of like the past year. And he's had from his iPhone movies, like, making movies for no money, to Florida Project, like working with huge stars, to just crazy set pieces. Like, the fact that the best guy in the world,
he's not rich when into success
and working,
is not okay.
It's like if Michael Phelps is like, by the way, Olympics, it's not really as much money as you expect. I have to.
It isn't. That's why you're on a Wheaties box. Do you know?
Right. But nobody is offering Sean Baker to be on a Wheaties box. You know.
Right.
And they're not even offering him to direct a Geico commercial. Like, that's the thing.
I think also if I wrote my own movie, like a movie that I've written, there's like movies that I have to get paid and then I write them and then, that gets made great. And then I'm, lots of notes and it's a, collaborative process. But if it's like my passion project, like I have a script I'm very passionate about that I wrote with a friend of mine, that if that were to get made, I think I would be way more insistent on it being an independent movie because of the control thing that Sean Baker was talking about, like where I want to maintain some control over it. So but I think I'm fine with like being a director for hire on a film that has a fun script, because I think,
and those are kind of studio films, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think his point, which is valid, is like, if you don't want to do studio films because you really love your art and you're wanting to make something that you're passionate about without compromise, that is the only way to go. And it is a shame that you have to starve to do that. I think that's really valid.
But I guess the other way to look at it is, he's saying indie filmmaking is a hobby. It's not a career.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally like the equivalent of skeet shooting or whatever, some other arbitrary thing that you don't make money doing.
However, and I think we can bring this all back to Laura.
Yes, please bring it all back to me, guys.
Oh, you're the guest on
Laura
the show.
ever. Come on. You heard of her company?
He was saying like, oh, I don't want independent film to be a calling card factory. Right. And that's totally valid. Like, I agree with Sean Baker on every principle, but also we all have benefited from doing passion projects that were calling cards that then created more lucrative opportunities for us. And I guess I just think that like, that's not good, but also like that has been the case since before we started coming up. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you would do an indie music video and then maybe you would get a paid one and then maybe you would get a little commercial and, and you would work your way up and maybe you make your indie movie in your free time. And that like we all made web series. No one has ever said like, how am I not making a living on my web series? That was the plan.
Right. And I'm sure, there's a lot of counterpoints to or counter examples like a Ryan Coogler or Robert Eggers or Ava DuVernay that I'm sure are making money.
Yeah.
And look, his point is like, they're all making money.
Or like the Duplass brothers, although I guess they also act and things on the side and make a lot of money. But like, they're kind of
like Du-Minus brothers. You know what I mean? Have you read their book? They don't make money. Well, what's next for you, Laura?
I'm working on Lucy and I want to do something else together. Lucy Hales, she's so fantastic.
Oh, cool.
And
so funny.
I mean,
Like so funny.
that's the thing. I knew she was funny because the rom-coms she's done, and and I knew she had range, and I would, but I don't think I realized how truly hilarious she is. Like, and because we were like improvising and playing with it a lot on set, she'd brought so many great ideas to it, and that also made it funnier. A lot of it's in the movie, but that also, like, she's such a good scene partner that it also helped everybody else feel comfortable playing in that world, because some of them had improv and some of them hadn't, and it was like suddenly everybody was just like so on their A game, and it was awesome. So
Wait, Laura, this is like, I know this is such an ending moment to the episode, but I'm just from a selfish point of view, I just want to ask real quick, like, when you're directing a feature film and you're on set and you have these actors, how do you get the improv? Like, how do you stir that pot?
Oren hates
It's
improv.
not that I hate improv, it's that I hate like random stuff,
Yes.
you know?
Agree.
Yeah.
And I like, obviously I feel like stuff needs to come from the character and move the story forward. Do you do it as scripted and then say like, hey, maybe riff on like the ways that what you would do to him in the bedroom? Like, or, things like that. Like what's your move?
It's very much what I call guided improv, because there's nothing worse than everybody just trying to be funny to make the crew laugh, and then none of it's usable and we're all wasting time. And because like both casts I've had the honor of working with are all they're so good that they understood like their characters really well beforehand. And we had a lot of conversations about the characters and who the characters are in the arc, so that anything they were adding joke wise was coming from a place of also like, it's either doing work for the character or it makes sense in the story. It was all usable. And part of that is also me throwing out like, we do it as scripted. Okay, now try this. Okay, try this. And it's not always.
And do you write do you have those things pre-written on your script? Like, hey, here's some things we can play with.
Some of it sometimes, but it's in the moment. And that comes from it's the same writer brain. It's the same muscle as the muscle you use when you're writing. And so it's just from doing that all the time. It's like, I just go into a place of like things popping in my head and then shouting them out. And then sometimes they'll get an idea from that. And then it kind of goes from there. But it's not always dialogue. Sometimes it's like blocking, or like, it'd be really funny as if you did this and then you did, what if you did this and try that. And sometimes it's dialogue or something like just do. And then like, especially on Curse Friends a lot, we would do it as scripted. We'd add a little stuff. We'd get it really solid and tight. And then I'd be like, all right, fun one, do whatever you want. And they'd just go bonkers. But it was only one, and it was like, and that often got used because it was so everybody was relaxed and we knew we had it done and in the canon. It was like, I hate the phrase in the canon. I don't know why I just said it, but
when we talked to Oren Brimmer, was he the fun one in the first take or the last take? Because I think I like this Laura Murphy version better.
I think Laura's version is, the common way to do it. Oren
get it really tight and then give him
for sure.
Yeah.
But Oren Brimmer will start with an improv, like before anyone knows what they're doing or anything, which I think is interesting.
That is interesting.
Tony Yasend heard that episode, and then when he was doing American Vandal was like, because he was really looking for stuff that was shaggy and weird and loose and like,
and that's
like,
why
like unpolished, right?
That's why he only won one Peabody for that show, because of all that crazy improv. No, I guess I do like
both directions work for sure.
Yeah, but what I like about the Laura Murphy way is that there's a pace already built into the scene, and not one actor is going to just improv for 5 minutes about something where you're like, wrap it up.
What did you think? How did you think improv worked before? No wonder you hate it. If that's not...
It's just, you say, maybe try it, just try something else. And then they just talk for 20 minutes and you're like,
well, the thing
at lunch.
The reason I like to do it that way is because I'm very aware also of like the running time of the movie. Like it can't be over. So like, especially with Comedy Central, it's like there's commercials. It's gotta be. So it's like, I want to make sure we have one real tight one that works, and then a crazy one, or, a couple trying a couple different things. But 80% of the time you use that tight take. You don't use the improv one, but you have it. The thing that was interesting about
the button from the weird take.
Exactly. Or just like one person's reaction. The thing with F, Marry, Kill was they were all so good that the first take was usable, which is huge, because then you do have the time to like get that right. Then, so you're only doing 3 or 4 takes. So it's like, we're not burning that much time. And the 4th take is the fun, is the funniest. A lot of the characters, or 2 in particular, which will make sense once you see it, to get that tonal sweet spot of like the right amount thriller, the right amount comedy, I would do a take where you lean into being scary. Now do a take where you play it for comedy. So there's like a whole nother version of the movie that's much more comedy heavy that I knew we needed, because I knew it would come down to to post. It was going to come down to post of how much comedy to push and how not to push. So I just did both.
Yeah,
and
I love
so in doing that, we often didn't use the funniest take. But in some of the scenes, like all the scenes with the cop ex-boyfriend, like so much of that just was, a lot of the like interaction with them was just on the day, adding stuff.
Plussing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you were in the edit room, you're editing a scene, did you find yourself mixing, okay, A side, super comedy, and then like threading in the thriller? Or did you kind of scene by scene say, oh, it's a little too goofy now? Like, were you mixing and matching, or were you consistent amongst?
I went all comedy the first time through because I knew that it looked like a thriller, and then went back and pulled back on it.
Cool.
And where I landed was probably still more comedy than what's on the screen. Like, I think once after my director's cut was a little more comedy heavy, and then they went through and pulled back on some of it, which was exactly the right thing to do. Where it landed is I think really perfect. And that was, in my head, they had said, make sure you make it funny. So I just was like, here's the funniest possible. And they were like, that's too funny. And I was like, great note, thanks. So like, if you're going to give a note,
boy, I get it all the time.
It's a great one to get.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And awesome. I think maybe it is like a little bit of my commercialness that makes me resistant to improv, because it always seems to make a shot longer, you know?
Yeah. And it's so hard on a commercial because everybody wants improv in the moment, but then it's never going to make it in the cut at the end because there's like too many layers of people. There's too much business that has to get done. There's not room for it.
There's also no character, but the characters aren't rich enough for them to be able to.
What? You think Mom with Swiffer is not rich enough? What are you talking about?
Yeah, she can have it all.
I did one commercial where it was like very improv heavy, which was this Whataburger spot, which is my favorite thing I've ever done, I think, with this like crazy town hall where a guy's complaining about wings. And that's the only commercial I've done where everybody went in like, let's just cast the funniest person and let him improvise.
And the concept is built around like,
exactly.
We're giving you like a sandbox and you can play with it. And I did this shoot, my Thailand shoot, where we had all these sports moments, and I wanted to shoot these crazy things happen in like a soccer game, and I wanted to shoot the final shot with like kind of a sports camera zooming in. And on some of the takes, I'd be like, tell the actor like, hey, you notice the camera, maybe you wave at it, you know? And so they would wave at it. And then the agency and client would be like, Oren, what's the plan for like when the actor is waving at the camera? Like, why did you do that? You know, like that's not in the storyboards. You know, like anytime you try to kind of do some improv on set, you have to explain it to 9 people.
Right.
And you're like, I just want to see what, you know.
I think it's also, you know, I haven't improved on a commercial set in a long time, but at the beginning, when I was coming from pure sketch, it was like, oh, my resume is College Humor and Comedy Central.
People were expecting you to do
that. Was 100%. That was the expectation. So we were always rolling 2 cameras because it was built for that. Laura, how many cameras on F, Marry, Kill? I was curious about that.
2. Oh no, 3. We had 3. Yeah. No, wait. We had 2 most days, but then like on days where we had a crane, we'd have a third body, I think. That was 2. Nora from Queens was always 3 cameras because of the amount of improv that happened. Yeah. And then like something like Murderville, that was 5 cameras at all times, which 4. It was at least, I think it was 5. I think it was 5 cameras.
How many takes would you do on Murderville?
That's the thing. You can only do 1 take.
Yeah.
So because Will and the cast actors know the story, but you know, the guests on the show don't know anything. They're literally walking in with nothing, and they have to solve the mystery by the end. And Will's really leading them through it. But so you cannot miss their authentic reaction to anything. So if anything, you go back and do pickups with Will or one of the. But we did pretty much 1 take all the way through. You don't even really cut. I would just yell pause, and everybody would stop, and then cameras would move, and then I'd say, "Okay, go." It was so insane and so fun. I mean, it was insane. It was like nothing I've ever done before. But that was a lot of cameras. That was a lot of front end prep work and organization, blocking and shot maps.
Yeah. By the way, all 3 of us have worked with Will Arnett.
Oh, really?
Like the 4 of us should have dinner.
He's so funny and awesome. What happened is he was in Cursed Friends because his production company was one of the producers on it. So he came and did a day. And we just hit it off. And then he was like, oh, you should come do this Murderville special. Cause
he brought you onto that?
Yeah. Cause it was like, we were moving so fast on Cursed Friends And I think I ended up wrapping him early, which is probably like a lot of it.
Yeah.
But
Like, give this woman a Reese's peanut butter.
yeah. So that was great. He's so great to work with.
Well, yeah, he's fun. You talk about like someone, he craves like the improv, you know, he's like, oh wait, I got something, you know.
And that was also, I mean, the Murderville was Jason Bateman and Maya Rudolph also, who by the time we were shooting it, I'm not really directing. I'm just like, you know, making sure the camera's in the right spot, and just watching Maya Rudolph improvise was like
the funniest person.
I mean, it was just like watching it. I kept the word fearless kept coming in my head, which sounds so corny, but I've just never seen anybody so good and so quick and brilliant at something. She's just a master of the thing she does. That it was just like it was in love it. It was just really cool, inspiring.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Very, very cool.
Well, on the note of inspiring other people, do you have a moment to give an unpaid endorsement with us?
Unpaid endorsements.
So my unpaid endorsement is a movie called Fire of Love. It's a documentary by these volcanologists, Katya and Maurice Kraft.
Like Vulcans from Star Trek?
Volcano studiers.
Volcanologists. Yes. This movie won like something, right?
Yeah, it came out in 2022. It was an awards buzzy movie. Yeah, I think, it was in kind of that conversation for sure. But it is about Katya and Maurice, these two scientists who are obsessed with volcanoes, who self-document like kind of a burgeoning, craft. Like we didn't really study volcanoes in a meaningful way up until kind of like it seems like the
baking
60s.
soda, some hydrogen
exactly
vinegar,
volcano.
So they are a real life couple who have this just incredible 16 millimeter footage of them like in the 60s as like young people camping in the mouth of a volcano, frolicking in like fire suits. And this isn't a spoiler. It's the premise of the film, but like lose their lives to volcanoes, basically. But they have essentially all of this footage for scientific purposes and also for kind of like educational purposes. The way that they would get grants and all of that was kind of through making these films. And so they'd go on speaking tours and all that stuff. So it felt like a authentic, like Steve Zissou sort of situation. Like literally they wear like red beanies and stuff. And it's like, but like fell in love and are like, we know someday we will be taken by the volcanoes and we're okay with it, and just obsessed with volcanoes and being together. And it's
awesome.
Pretty wild.
Wow.
Pretty incredible. Yeah.
I remember, it was nominated for Best Documentary. 95th Academy Awards. But I remember the footage was incredible.
What's it called again?
Fire of Love.
It's like Romeo and Juliet meet Lava, the Pixar movie.
Exactly.
It's like Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Heche in the movie Volcano.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. The making of that. Yeah. It's called Walking.
But it looks like it's on Hulu. I watched it on National Geographic, which is part of Disney Plus. But I have a kid, so there you go. So that's my endorsement. Laura, what you got?
Okay. This one, I have a practical one and then I have a ridiculous, and then a real one. So you guys probably know about this, but has anybody ever talked about Shot Deck, the website?
We have talked about Shot Deck, but I want to hear about what you think of Shot Deck.
Well, if you need to do treatments or you're looking for like visual reference, before Shot Deck, nothing like this existed, and it's getting better and better. And like the fact that you can go in and search like the time period, the lighting, the time of day, and color palettes, I feel like it is. Sometimes I'll just like, if I am trying to figure out what I want something to look like, I'll just like pick random stuff that I like and then see what comes up. And then that gets me to a movie that I then start looking at images of. And so I find it to be a very helpful resource.
Yeah, cool. I like that I was looking for images of convenience stores. And if you click on a convenience store from one movie, American Ultra or whatever, then I'll show you like all these convenience store pictures from other movies, and you kind of can walk around.
It's still site. Like the best like meta tag connections of any of the, because now there's imitators as well, right? But like
are
something
there?
About I think so. Like Film AI, I want to say, or like Flim AI. Maybe?
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Flim. Yeah, there used to be Film Grab and all those.
Yeah, Film Grab I think still exists.
Frame Set I've been using, and I use them both, but I do find with Shot Deck, I feel like I need to have a slightly better idea of what I'm looking for, and frame set, because it does use like AI for search. You can write like, I'm looking for a picture of a barrel in the middle of a kid's bedroom, and it'll somehow show you something, but Shot Deck would show you nothing.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we love Shot Deck too. It's
I
awesome.
think Shot Deck also leans into movies, which I feel like is an easier reference point for me, at least,
I find it's more helpful for like, the long form treatments than for movie treatments.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I put movies in
commercial treatments too.
all the time. Yeah.
I just pitched on something today that was like genre, kind of like one is like kind of a Super 8 type thing, and the other one is more of like an Indiana Jones type thing. And so for that, I would use it. But for commercials, usually those images are too dark.
Yeah.
Exactly. Is a problem.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I don't know if you guys have seen the show, but it's so good, and I feel like nobody has seen it. It's from a couple years ago. It's all Finchers. It's called Patriot on Amazon Prime. Steve Conrad made it.
No.
It's so brilliant. First of all, it's visually striking. It has a couple seasons. It's so darkly hilarious, and it has beautiful music in it. The concept is basically this guy's going into the family business, but the family business is the CIA, and to work
fun.
and to do CIA hits, he has to embed himself in this piping company, and that's the hardest part of his job. Like he has to learn piping, and it's very confusing, but also he has so much guilt about his murdering job that he goes to open mics and writes folk music of kind of admitting what he's doing. And so, but then he also has this
Steve Conrad.
Yeah.
That part.
So good.
But it's so brilliant. The music's beautiful. It's very darkly hilarious, and it looks striking. And there's one of the best monologues ever written about piping in the first season that, I don't want to ruin. But if you look up
awesome.
Patriot piping monologue, you can watch
on Amazon Prime.
And it's a oneer. It's a oneer piping monologue. Cool. Brilliant.
Pipe.
That's very exciting, actually. I don't know this show at all. That looks great.
Binge that.
Yeah. When I first moved to LA, I was like working as an intern at Village Roadshow Pictures. We'd read all these scripts, and everyone was like going nuts about these two Steve Conrad scripts. The Weatherman, which ended up being like this Nicolas Cage movie, where he was walking down the street, people would throw milkshakes at him.
Oh yeah, I remember. It's good.
And I think it might have been like before Glee did it, and then The Pursuit of Happiness, which ended up being that Will Smith movie where he's like a genius, but he's homeless with his son, and
there's also a movie called The Promotion, which he did, which is fantastic, with Sean William Scott and John C. Reilly, I think.
Yeah. He has this way to make really kind of moving character pieces that have these quirks, like the open mic night, like these, he's really good at a Rubik's Cube. These things that, if you were like, what's the good version of Garden State? Or it's like, or what is Garden State today in the way that we remember it the first time we saw it?
Yeah.
Before we realize it's just like Zach Braff's Notebook, random cute things.
And pattern.
But that's awesome. I'm excited
a huge Steve Conrad fan. And then on the other side of that is Love Island UK All-Stars. You guys gotten into the Love Island world?
I love Love Island.
I only like the UK though.
I only like US.
Oh.
And ever since you went to British Columbia, you only care about
here's my thing
UK
about
stuff.
I like the lingo I learn.
Oh yeah,
I prefer
like
Columbia.
Right? Yeah,
the original one.
The US version just really knows how stupid it is, and I really like that.
Right.
Really
okay,
like
that's
that.
fair.
Matt, you've seen the UK one?
I've tried.
Yeah.
But also,
the language
is it as much of a time commitment? Because the US is on 5 days a week.
Oh, this one's, I feel like, much quicker. I also like kind of fast forward through the couples I'm not that interested in.
Okay. Yeah.
But like, I watched an episode where I just learned the phrase turkey teeth. Do you know about turkey teeth? She was like, they're so British. I'm not going to do the accent, but she's like, I just like a guy, like a fit guy with turkey teeth. And I was like, what are turkey teeth? And it's, I guess to go get veneers, they go to Turkey a lot because it's.
I was like, they have beaks. Yeah.
So like every episode, there's something like turkey teeth where I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Did they really fall in love on that show?
I think a couple of the couples stayed together for like a couple of years, but that's out of hundreds of them, maybe 3. So
gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I do love Love Island, but I don't know that I have more room in my heart for an additional.
The UK All Stars is good because you could just get the best of the best. You don't have to watch all the old ones.
Okay. Yeah. Well, on a rainy day, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, Patriot first though.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
Kathleen, what you got?
I have 2 bad ones and 1 good one, but I might save the good one for another time. My first bad one is that, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have like a burst eye vessel right now, like right here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
And it just happened to me. I was at the Grove at the Cheesecake Factory where one goes when the inland.
Too great. And then it just pop.
No, it's the second time this has happened to me. The first time was on an airplane, and I read that it's kind of common for it to happen on an airplane. I think I might have talked about it on the podcast because I got to set with a bunch of strangers and my entire eye was red. And whole time you're like, hey, just so you know, like this isn't normally what I look like, because you met all these people for the first time. The client, all the grips are like, I'm not crazy. But because this is the second time it's happened to me, it's not bad for you really. And it just kind of goes away on its own. So if you are just like on an airplane or something, and then you go look in the mirror and your whole eye is like dark red, chill out. It'll go away in a couple of days.
What causes it? It just bursts? It's such a hypochondriac.
I think like the air pressure or something is why it happens in airplanes. I don't know why it happened to me today. I put my son on my shoulders and then it happened, and maybe it's effort. It might be really the stress, lack of sleep, depression, impending doom.
Do you think Cheesecake Factory is at a different altitude?
And cheesecake. No, but the Cheesecake Factory at the Grove, I do think it's in the middle of Los Angeles. And there's 0 cell reception in that entire restaurant. And I do wonder if they're doing something.
Yeah. It's like an air pressure lock.
Blasting some sort of, something. My other super dumb one.
Wait, what's your endorsement though? Getting your blood vessels popping?
If they pop, just chill out. You'll be fine.
And be nice to people who have them.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
The other thing is my wife does this thing that drives me crazy, which is when she wants Alexa to stop playing music, she'll say, Alexa, turn off. And I just want everyone listening to this to know that you can just say, Alexa, stop. And it's just much faster and just will save you so much time. So
cumulatively seconds a day.
Wait, because does it turn all the way off and then you boot it back up?
It's like
you're talking about syllables?
Yeah, it just takes like a little longer, if you're like yelling at your kids because they're doing something and they've got Olivia Rodrigo blasting, you want to be like, Alexa, stop. You don't want to be like, Alexa, turn off. This takes so long. Anyhow, my third one is this book I'm reading. It's called The Anxious Generation. It's like a New York Times bestseller. So I think a lot of people know about it, but I'll talk about it on the next Unpaid Endorsement in detail. But I just want to have one non-crappy one. But there's so much it's made me think about that I'll talk about it on
We'll talk about it more. Okay, sounds good. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Laura, where can people find out more about you and keep track of all the awesome stuff you're doing?
I guess Instagram and Twitter. It's all best Laura ever across the board.
Perfect.
LAURA.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. This is so fun. We've been dancing around each other for so long. I can't believe we finally met. We should do this.
We're finally Roger Rabbiting. What's the one where your feet touch each other?
I don't know.
Where you walk and then you touch a foot and then you go back.
Oh, the kid and play one?
Maybe. I'll look it up. It'll be my next endorsement.
If you have any questions for us or Laura, you can always email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com or hit us up on social media at justshootitpod or me at Mr. Matt Unlow across all social media, especially Letterboxd.
And I'm at O'Kaplan on Instagram. This episode is edited by Kevin O. Yang. It is produced by Tyler Small. And you're listening to music from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. And we will catch you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.